the evening of Valentine's Day, February 14, 2008. The wife and I have been out to gorge at one of the local eateries. Saw a lot of people, never stood in a longer line to get a chance to eat. Good though, very, very good. Well, different hat. Got a granddaughter and her husband at Kearney, Nebraska. So when they moved to Nebraska, I made sure to orient her and them that football's serious up there. And as a result, I've got a Nebraska shirt and a Nebraska hat. Still root for Oklahoma and Kansas, but I do understand in Nebraska you better be a loyal Nebraska football supporter or you probably just aren't going to fit in at all. I mean, they're serious up there about football, and with good reason. Osborne took them to title games over and over. Nebraska, the team to be feared. Well, we had a football game in Alamosa. Yes, Monte Vista. Monte Vista is a neighboring town that's the competitor to be the town in the San Luis Valley. Night game. Had debates. School board did whether or not to have any football games at night after October 15th. It gets too darn cold. Well, this was a night game. Don't remember how the game came out. I don't know if that had much to do with what happened afterwards. I remember it was an exciting game, a fun game. We'd taken our little clip-on stadium seats to hook onto the bleachers. I'm carrying them, we're coming out. And we're just getting through the gate of the fenced-in football field into the parking lot area. What the heck is going on? There's Assistant Principal John Wayne McCure, and he's holding some kid almost in a chokehold. Kid's feet are off the ground. The kid's fighting him and kicking him and elbowing him, and he's hanging right in there and holding on to him. What on earth? Well, then you lift your eyes from those two and see, hey, what's on earth is here's 4 or 5 big Mexican boys, belts off, wound up, big old belt buckles hanging on the remaining 8 to 12 inches of belt. They have turned those belts into weapons, and they're wanting to get in and pound on that boy. That Anglo boy that McCure is holding on to. Well, you know, you don't know anything about it, but you don't want violence. You don't want somebody getting hurt. And boy, that kid that McCure was holding was mad clear through or crazy clear through. He's going to take on the whole bunch if he could get McCure to let him loose. Well, without thinking, I stepped between McCure and the boy and the assailants and got in line with what looked to me to be maybe the biggest, strongest, maybe the ringleader of the group. And boy, as I did, 4 or 5 other men, we just really came out together. Formed a little barrier between them. Problem solved, right? Well, yeah, they settled down, and we weren't looking behind us, but the ruckus behind kind of settled down, so you think it's over. Maybe it would have been if it hadn't been for the fact that Mr. Chicano, bus supervisor, head mechanic for the Alamosa school bus fleet, walks by and he says, "Damn monkeys, go home where you belong." Well, I don't even know where those 5 were at the time, but they obviously heard him, and it evidently was like pouring gasoline on a small fire. I don't even know how it happened. All I know is all of a sudden I'm aware that out here in the main parking lot there's a skirmish line. And these 4 or 5 have been joined by 3 or 4 others, and they're lined right up across the parking lot. And there's a whole bunch of locals. I don't know how many Mexican American, how many Anglo, but there was a skirmish line between the invaders and the locals. And as I walk over in that direction, I see that a boy close to the end of the line where I was approaching, he's got a knife out. Ooh. So I shifted one of those seats to the left hand and kept one in the right hand, and walked up and got between him and whoever he was threatening on the other side of the skirmish line. He repeatedly jabbed at me, and I mean we're within range. If he wants to stick that knife in me, it's easy. But he's going at it like he's going to, but never touching me. I'm going to tell you right now, these were kids that, again, had been trained in how to start a fight and be able to say, but the first blow was struck with the other people. I wasn't about to hit him and didn't. But I got to admit, down deep, I had the feeling that if you knife me, I'm going to try to brain you with this chair that's over in my right hand. And I didn't move the chair in my left hand at all when he would act like he's going to stick me. If I'd known he was going to do that, I'd have held the thing up higher to start with, but it never even occurred to me. Well, while this is all going on, different threatenings going on up and down the line, and people being angry and so on, somebody drove up and put lights. You know, parking lots aren't well lit. Put the lights with their car on. One of these boys stepped right through the line, kicked the lights out of that car. The husband of a lady PE teacher at our high school was there, and I don't know if they thought, here's a young man who might have enough temper. He's also the son of a college professor and later the superintendent of schools down in the Sanford School District. They go over and literally kick his butt. And he was, I'm sure, going to react, but the PE teacher lady, she saw what was going on, and she intervened. Hey, honey, don't get any further into this thing. Well, my dear wife, she comes up and says, give me a dime so I can call the police. Honey, you have to get that dime out of my pocket. I can't help you. She insists. In fact, she reaches over and takes that other chair out of my right hand. So I fish into my pocket. I give her what I thought was a dime. She gives me back my chair and goes on. She said later, thanks a lot. She got up there where there was light, got ready to call the police. It was a penny. Well, that's about par for the course on my recognizing what a coin feels like. But she said it wasn't any problem. Mr. Chicano was already there and had the dime and was telephoning the police and said they were on the way. Well, the police came with sirens. The line broke and they ran for their cars, and I just know the police could see them run to those cars and could have intercepted the cars, but they did not. And again, probably following police procedure, that their main concern was safety, and if there was problems on the, anybody being hurt or anything, take care of that first. Well, the school board and I both felt like, hey, this thing needs to be followed through on. So we talked about it at a school board meeting. I went back to the police chief and said, Niall, I think I can identify some of those guys and we'd like to see something done. He said, okay, we'll look into it some more, and he sent his officers up with a whole little box full of photos they'd taken at that near riot, whatever they had at Adams State College. Man, I took them home, spread them out on the table, and I looked and I looked, and I picked this one, then I picked him over here, and I picked him over there. 2 or 3 of those kids that were closer to me, I was able to pick them out, and then more than one photograph. And I thought, okay, now we're going to get some action. No. Took back what I found and said, here it is. And the next day, the police came back and said, yeah, we think you're probably right, but the people you picked out were in a lot more of those pictures than you were able to pick them out in. And in view of that, a defense attorney would pick you apart in a court case that you are not able to give a positive identification. So nothing happened. Well, again, nobody got hurt. And you want to think, okay, it's water under the bridge, no problem. Things will go on from here and get better. Well, maybe they will and maybe they won't. Tell you a couple of more stories about the Viva la Raza period in Alamosa, Colorado. And I'm not saying that the Mexican population didn't have a reason to emphasize Viva la Raza and to be seeking ways to be given more equal footing than they were getting. There's a heck of a lot of prejudice now. There was a heck of a lot of prejudice then. Prejudice that largely is phony baloney. You give these Mexican families One generation, sure, the criticism I just saw in the paper in a letter to the editor this week, that the parents don't learn English. Well, of course they don't. My German great-grandparents didn't learn English either, but my grandparents did. And by the time it got down to me, I can say Spreche de Dutch and one or two other words in German. It just takes a generation or two to get Americanized and get that English language internalized. And that's going on, and it goes on beautifully with the Mexican-American people. And for anybody to prove otherwise, I'd like to see that proven. It's just not true.